Hello, everybody. This is a Thrive Tribe conversation with Paul Mallory. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Ollie, and hello, everybody.
It's good to have people on here, and I've been seeing some of these recent conversations that you've been having, and it's really inspired me to want to reach out and kind of get on one with you. So I hope that you've got 30 minutes today so we can kind of discuss a few things that I think will be very beneficial to some of the Thrivers out there.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Ollie.
Good to hear. And I suppose it'd be really good to start off with really finding out, why you started this Thrive Tribe, because for most people out there who are just joining the group, they're just getting introduced to the people in this group. I think they really want to know, what is the driving force? It's a free community for people to come into and gain a lot of value and content out of. I suppose it'd just be good to understand from you really why you're doing this and what your core values are that drives you on.
Okay, yeah, it's a great question. I suppose it's not immediately obvious. And it's something you will have spotted that I'm very passionate about, I'm very energized about. And where it comes from is, actually, it more or less started in my working life, Ollie, and it was reaching a point in my career, and my age, I suppose, getting to middle age as well, but reaching a point in my career where I felt like, to put it simply, I was spending 8 to 10 hours a day working at something for not too much more reason than it paid money, which met my bills. And it just occurred to me at one point, after a lot of frustration and dissatisfaction, really, it occurred to me that I wonder how many people work in this way to pay the bills and really don't have any more engagement with their work than that. And it occurred to me that 8 to 10 hours every day of our working lives, for the next 20, 30, 40 years, however long we've got to go of our working lives, that was a lot of time to be spending on something that isn't really engaging us and fulfilling us and making us feel good about life. So I wanted to do something about that and started the Thrive Tribe as a result. And my thinking, really, and also with my company that I started, Soul Work, all of the thinking behind that was that there are two possibilities, and I'm still focusing on work for the moment. This spills over into our private lives as well. But at work, there are two possibilities, it seems to me. We could change the way we think about work so that we become engaged in what we're doing and we put the whole of ourselves into it, because that's the way we now view it and think about it. And the mind is a very powerful thing. And then the second possibility is that that's just not possible in the role we're in. And we actually need to find another role that we can behave that way in, so that we get fulfillment and happiness. And that, it seems to me, is the most important thing on the journey of life, not that we manage to pay the mortgage and the bills all the way through our lives. So the mindset part of that is what I describe as thriving. And it's about how we view what we're doing, who we're being, and being more of who we really are. And obviously that then begins with, do we understand who we really are? But that was the thinking, Ollie. It was just that life's too short, basically, to go through it moaning and complaining, getting to the end and saying, well, at least I paid my bills. That seemed to me not to be enough of a reward from the journey.
It seems to be such a relatable issue, no matter what position someone is in their career, whether they've just finished uni, they're now going on to get their first job, whether they're 50 years old, 30 years into their career, and really just getting by because they know that that's the way. They think that is because I'm on the life cycle and I have to keep going. I may be happy about what I'm doing, but I'm not thriving. I'm not coming into the office bursting full of energy. So I suppose, people will be sitting at home, people will be at their office listening to this, or might be, out on a walk. What do you think that they can do right this moment to instantly change their perspective on what they do for a living? How can they see it in a different way and wake up with that kind of better feeling? Now, I know this is a long topic to cover, but kind of in a nutshell, how could Bob from down the road suddenly wake up and just feel more excited and purposeful about what he's doing?
Yeah, it's about connecting to who you really are, I believe. I think, for many people, including myself on my journey, the hardest part of that, the most difficult part, is understanding who you really are. Because we all have an ego or an identity, which is a constructed story of who we believe we are.
Yeah.
And it's constructed in part by our surroundings, by our context, by the society we live in, by our family, by expectations that are placed on us.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember years ago, I worked for a training company, and we had a team meeting where one of the leaders of the meeting got us to do an exercise, and he got us all to sit in pairs and talk about, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And you were not allowed to use your name. You were not allowed to use your job description or job title. And you were not allowed to talk about what you do at work. Now describe who you are. And it was quite challenging, actually. Because, so what I'm saying is, I think we construct this story of who we are,
Mm-hmm.
which ticks all the boxes, and it usually relates to our job, our name, which society we live in, and probably our family as well. But that's a story about who we are. It's not who are we really.
Yeah.
And so if you like, a way of thinking of that is we wear a mask with our identity. We have this mask on of who we think we are, who we believe we are. We're not doing this intentionally. It's subconscious, but we have this mask on of who we think we are. And, we walk around with the mask on, but the dissatisfaction and the lack of fulfillment comes from, why isn't this making me happy? And the reason is we're acting out a role rather than being who we really are. So I believe the answer to this lies in going very deep inside and finding out, who am I really?
Yeah.
And then being authentic about it. Really simple example. Many people will have seen the film Billy Elliot, about the boy who wanted to be a ballet dancer, right? Which is absolutely not the mask that his family had in mind for him.
Yeah.
And wasn't an acceptable thing for a boy in that culture, in that situation to do.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no doubt, if you watch that movie, that's who he really was.
Yeah.
And only by being who he really was could he really truly be happy. So this is a very long answer for Bob, and he may need to go for a slightly longer walk to use this. He may need to go for many walks, which, by the way, is a very good way of doing it. I remember myself sitting on top of a hill in Oxfordshire on many pleasant Sunday, warm, sunny afternoons, staring out at the wonderful view, pondering these things, because a lot of this we know the answer to, but we have to go really quiet and go inside to find it. Mm-hmm. So, sorry, that was a very long answer to your question. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, there's no right way of answering it, I don't think. I think what most people want, especially when they first like the idea of doing that something more, the reason why people have joined this group is really because they know that there's something else out there. They know that there's a different level of thinking. They know there's a different level of energy state. Even myself, I feel very lucky for what I do, but I wouldn't say I was thriving 24/7. I wouldn't say I was bouncing out of bed to get up to do work. And I think just to give some or people some insights into what they can do to start thinking in a different form. Because it is, like you say, all of the labels we put on ourselves, it's all perspective. It's everything that we do. It's our state of mind, our state of energy, the way that we act. All of it creates who we are. And I know that, moving into what we were going to talk about today, really about, the Thrive workshops, to really help people thrive more, especially at work, but in life as a general thing, I kind of like you to take us through what really you would cover in these kind of online workshops, just so people can get an understanding of what they would expect if they were to join you on one of these things.
Okay. And just picking up on one of the things you said there, Ollie, you talked about energy. And I think that's a really key word in this conversation, because what I'm talking about, the engagement at work that I'm talking about, and by the way, let me say again, this spills over from work into personal life. People talk about work-life balance. I don't really like that notion, because I think if you're being your authentic self, you're being everything you can be, you're being that all the time. You're not turning it on and off as you get into the car to go to work.
Yeah.
And in a way, we do. In a way, we turn off who we really are when we go to work, because now I have to behave.
Yeah.
And now I have to conform. And now I have to live to all those social norms, and I have to wear a tie and dress in a certain way, because that's the work environment. Mm-hmm. So some of this is a bit subversive, because it's about encouraging people to break some of that conformity and break some of that, just kind of compliance with the way things are, Because I think actually employers want you to be who you really are, because they want you to be highly productive and energized and engaged and give all your best. Mm-hmm. And people don't. There's loads of statistical surveys. Gallup do an annual survey into the level of disengagement of people at work.
Okay.
In other words, they don't really believe in what they're doing. They haven't really bought into the mission of the organization, and they're basically turning up for the money, right? Yeah. So they're meeting their job description. They're doing the minimum to get the money. But that's not helpful for employers any more than it makes people fulfilled and happy. Mm. So that's the first thing to say, is that as work and private life spill over into one another, and this is about how you're being as a person. It's not just about performing better at work, though that is a massive benefit for organizations, I believe. Yeah. But the energy word that you used is really important to me. So when we're being authentic, when we're being who we really are, we don't need somebody to come along and motivate us. Yeah. The motivation, and I don't even like that word very much, the drive, the energy, the passion is internal, it's inherent. Yeah. It's what's in us. And when I talk about going inside and finding who we really are, what we're really doing is exploring ourselves inside to find out what is it that gives us that energy. And it's a different answer for each of us, right? So when you hit that, when you're mining inside and you hit that seam of energy, journal it, capture it, make sure you know what those things are that do it for you, and then put yourself in an environment as much as you can where you're able to do that and it's encouraged and welcomed. Yeah. Okay, so that's what I mean about being authentic and being who you really are. So these workshops we talked about, what I tried to do was think about what experience could I take people through that would help them on this journey. Yeah. So I've been on this journey myself, you see, and it seems to have taken forever. I seem to be doing it for years and years and years. But there have been certain breakthrough moments where I've noticed that certain things worked for me and maybe they would work for other people. So I tried to encapsulate all that in a sort of workshop format where I could take people through these steps. And I came up with these 6 steps, which I'll outline briefly for you. Mm-hmm. Before I do that, I'd like to just summarize a few assumptions underlying the workshop, because I think these things are important to grasp. Yeah. And also I think this will be helpful to members of the Thrive Tribe, whether or not they come on a workshop or attend a teleclass, even just listening to this video. If you can think about these things, these are the things that will help you on the way, I think. So the assumptions I felt sort of underpinned the whole design of this experience that I'm talking about were, first of all, that a Thrive mindset is a choice we make. Okay. And it's been a mantra of mine for a while, Ollie, that we always have a choice. Yeah. I can't claim credit for it. It goes back to a book by Viktor Frankl, who was incarcerated in a prisoner of war camp in the Second World War. And he wrote a very good book called Man's Search for Meaning, which people can look up. And he concluded that in spite of everything he went through, as he looked around, some people survived the experience and some people thrived in the experience and other people died. And most people died. Actually, they gave up. And he noticed that the one thing that nobody could take away from you was how you felt and thought inside. Nobody can touch that. That's inside you. Yeah. And his take on that was, actually, we always have a choice, even in those most constrained of circumstances that he went through. And thank God most of us don't have to go through anything like that. But even in that situation, he had the choice to thrive, survive the experience, and continue to believe that he would have a great life afterwards. And that's what kept him going. So he noticed the mindset was absolutely key to all of them. Yeah. And he then went on to write and work on psychology as a result. So whether we thrive or whether we merely survive, in the way I've been describing it, is a choice we make. Yeah. Subconsciously or consciously. So make it consciously rather than subconsciously, right? Choose to be a thriver. That's the first assumption. The second one is everyone has the potential to make that choice. I don't believe there's anyone who is unable, if they understand what we're talking about now, to choose to be a thriver. They might then say, but I don't know how, or I don't have the ability. But yes, of course, I would like to thrive in life rather than merely survive. So everybody has the potential. The third one is, I think that potential becomes a capability for people to thrive once they have the necessary attitude, skills, and knowledge to do it, which is what the workshop is all about. And attitude, skills, and knowledge includes beliefs and assumptions. They're really crucial to this. We just talked about a couple of them. Yeah. I believe I have the potential to be a thriver. If I believe I don't, then I won't be. Yeah. Henry Ford quote, which makes that point very well. Yeah. The fourth one is once they've got that capability, then I believe people make the choice when they're inspired to do so. We still need to be triggered by something to choose in the moment to be a thriver rather than a survivor.
Yeah.
I have to remind myself of this every time I get a parking ticket or every time I'm sitting in a traffic jam and I'm trying to get to an event.
Yeah.
I have to constantly remind myself, I'm a thriver, I'm a thriver. This will not get me down. I will not get upset. And I don't always succeed. And that's an important point. You know, we can't thrive 100% of the time. There'll be moments when we dip into survive mode.
Yeah.
And it's probably a defense mechanism, and it's probably a good thing. But the key is to try and thrive more of the time, to make it more of the greater percentage of our time we're thriving. So we sometimes thrive, we sometimes survive. We need to be inspired to choose to thrive, and to make that sustainable, to make it a habit, we need some input. And that's a big part of why I'm doing the Thrive Tribe, Ollie. That's why I'm doing these video interviews with people and writing the blogs, is to give people those little bits of inspiration that say, actually, yeah, I can choose right now to be a thriver. And there's another tip, to help me do it. That's what it's all about. So the 6 steps that I mentioned that I designed into this workshop are, I'll just tell you what they are, and then I'll go through them. Awareness, empowerment, imperative, commitment, enablement, and activation. 6 steps. And let me take you through them. The first one is awareness. That is, I'm aware that I have a choice to thrive or a choice to survive. So we have to become aware of the things we're talking about in this video.
So let's take Bob through this scenario then. So
Yep.
He's at his work. He's 47 years old. He's got a family. He's got a mortgage. Bob needs to become aware of, let's go into that. What does he need to become aware of?
I think the first thing is, it's the principle that I call "Whose Life Is It Anyway?" Borrowing the title from a play from some years ago. Whose life is it anyway? I mean, it's your life. It's nobody else's. It doesn't belong to anybody else. And you have to recognize that you have a certain responsibility for owning that life. Okay? One metaphor that came to mind the other day is it's a bit like, if some alien brought you to planet Earth and said, welcome to planet Earth, you can have 80 years on the planet. What would you like to do with it? How would you like to spend it? It's recognizing that it's down to us.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of my breakthrough moments on my journey was reading a little thin book by Neil Donald Walsh, who people may have come across, where and he talks a lot about God. Now, whether you're religious or not religious, I happen to be an atheist, but the principle is a good one. And whatever you believe by God is a different thing. Okay, so let's not get into that too much. But he wrote this book that said, if you're waiting for God to reveal your purpose on the planet, you're going to wait a long time. He has no purpose for you. It's up to you. Yeah. And that was a real big moment for me, because like a lot of people, I think I'd been mining, looking for my purpose. What is it? As soon as I discover what it is, I can do it. And his take on it was, no, you get to decide what it is. And this is the hardest thing for people, I believe, but there's an infinite number of possibilities I could choose from. What I choose to do with my life, it's just too big. I can't choose. I might get it wrong. It's risky. What if I choose the wrong thing? What if I get on the wrong path? So instead of choosing, we let everybody else choose for us, and then we become miserable because we're not being who we really are. So there's some work involved, and there's the requirement to take responsibility. So that's what awareness is all about. It's getting connected to those principles and ideas. Okay,
so Bob's now connected to what he's doing, what he's really doing it for. He's taken a step back. He's had a look at his life. He's understood exactly why he's wanting to make that change. He doesn't necessarily know how to thrive, but he's understanding why he's wanted to make that change. Is that right to say?
Yeah. I think he's probably only interested in this subject because he's maybe feeling a level of dissatisfaction, or that there's something kind of missing and there could be more.
Just knows there's that something else.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a good point you've raised, Ollie, because this all starts with an assumption, actually, that we can potentially live fantastic, happy lives. I mean, you can also make an assumption that no, life is about struggle and torture, and I'm not really performing properly unless I'm feeling extremely agitated and sad and distraught. And some people make that choice, and some people live out their lives that way. And if we want to get into theories of karma, maybe that's the journey you're supposed to be on. But just so you know, my personal theory is that life can be absolutely fantastic if we choose that.
Yeah.
So there is a big underlying assumption that Bob has spotted there's something more than he's currently experiencing, potentially. Yeah? And that's certainly the way I feel about life, and it's certainly my experience. So I've managed to get further along that road towards that and lead what I consider now to be an extremely happy life, versus one that was kind of dissatisfying before when I was in this career path that didn't suit me too well. So so being aware in that way is really important. Yeah. And then the second step was one I called empowerment. First one was awareness. Second one is empowerment, which is about understanding who you are and getting confidence through self-knowledge, becoming more authentic. And it's really that bit I talked about, discovering that inner energy. That's what empowers us. Because the weird thing is, Ollie, when we connect with who we really are, when we find that inside of ourselves, and I'm not talking about a mission in life, I'm talking about what is it that gives me energy? What situations, what activities, what connectivity with people, what mode am I in? Who am I being really when I feel that energy inside of me that makes me go, wow. When I feel that, who am I being then? That's what I'm talking about. That's where the empowerment comes from. And you can, I'm afraid, go and see as many motivational speakers as you like. Nobody's going to give that to you. Right? Yeah. You have to find it in yourself. It is in there. I believe it's in everyone. It may be under a lot of layers of noise that are built up over the years, which is why we have to do some work to get into it and find out where it is. But when you connect with it, you know it. I mean, you just know it. And the empowerment comes from, I'm just going to do this because it feels so good and nobody's going to stop me.
Yeah.
So it's inherent motivation. It's self-driven. That's the empowerment phase.
Right. Okay. So, and just to make a point on this for the average person who wants to really make this work.
Yeah.
The empowerment phase, just from what you said then, it sounds like it's taking a few days out of your life to be conscious about really what drives you. If it's walking down the street, you say hello to someone and it just gives you that fuzzy feeling. If you start doing that more often and you do that consecutively, you consecutively find out exactly what it is. It gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling, gives you that energy.
Yes.
You can start to, you can kind of make it happen as a more conscious feeling rather than going out there and just letting it happen.
Yes.
You can start to make it happen. You can take control of those feelings.
Yes.
Is that kind of where we're going with that?
Absolutely. And I think it's as simple as, what else can I bring into my life that will bring more of that feeling into my life? Who do I need to spend more time with? What kind of people? Who do I need to spend less time with? Because those people drag me down and remove my energy.
Yeah.
Right? Which is equally important. Environment matters a lot in this discussion. So what kind of environment would I need to be in, and with what kind of people, or for some people, with no people, right? Because what gives them that energy is silence and solitude. Not for everyone, we're all different. That's the point. But yes, absolutely. And it's, if something makes you feel really energized and excited, like doing these videos with you do for me, Ollie, I hope that's coming across. This stuff really hits my hot buttons, If something does that for you, why wouldn't you do more of it? Why wouldn't you go after that? Why wouldn't you say, I deserve to have more of this feeling in my life?
Yeah.
And not to be overly distracted by the fact that something else pays much more. Because we do get distracted by that.
Yeah.
And we tend, and I've done it myself over the years, we tend to go after the stuff that pays best.
Yeah.
And that's where we end up sometimes in maybe a corporate job where we're very highly paid, thinking, but this is awful. The money's terrific, but this is really awful. Yeah. And then we had the challenge of having to give up some of the money to become happy, which is what I did, and that's quite painful. Yeah. So the more clear we can get about who we really are and what gives us that energy earlier, the less we have to give up later on to get back to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yes, it's about finding that energy, getting more of it. And then, so that's empowerment, right? And empowerment comes from, and I wrote a blog, I think the other day, Ollie, or recorded a video, I can't remember which now, about giving ourselves permission to do things. Because I was just pondering, why doesn't everybody just thrive? What is everybody waiting for? Because thriving is primarily mindset, so it's just start thriving right now. Why are you waiting? And I kind of had this feeling that people don't necessarily act out of the ordinary without somebody giving them permission to do so. And I think the reason that happens is there's a huge social pressure on people to be like other people. But what you have to remember is that 80% of people are survivors, not thrivers.
Yeah.
So all the people you're looking around at saying, well, that's normal, generally speaking, most of those are survivors. They're not thriving.
Yeah.
So thrivers are people who want to be in the smaller group. They want to be a bit different. And you usually recognize it when you meet a thriver, because it feels like, wow, why is their life so great and how can I have some of that?
Yeah.
Because they just radiate it.
Yeah.
Right? So they're thriving. So then step 3, we get on to what I call imperative, which is we've got to really make this a must for our lives. We've got to the point where Bob recognizes that certain things give him great energy and make him feel really good, but he may still not be convinced that that's most important. Maybe the money is really important because it's paying for his house and his lifestyle and all the rest of it. How do we make this imperative to our lives? How do we make this the thing that we choose most ahead of everything else? And that becomes about understanding our values, which again are different for each of us as individuals. And this is it's a fascinating and complex subject, which we could go into a lot of detail on. But the question is, for each of the people listening, what is most important to you in life? Okay. And the answer to that, I can guarantee you, is not obvious, and it's not what you think it is, and it's not what you think it should be, and it's not what you've been acting out probably for the last several decades, if you're that old. What's most important to you in life is, again, something you have to go inside and find. But when you find that, then all of this becomes really important, because if you think of life as a limited span of time, and if you want to thrive and do something with it, you have to live out your values.
Yeah.
And to do that, you need to know what they are.
Yeah. And just so somebody can understand what a value is to them, it could be taking their dog out for a walk. It doesn't have to be anything as big as going to a big company and then doing something that they think they're going to be massively passionate about. Say they were passionate about technology, they went and worked for Apple and worked their way up. That's a long-term one, but people don't realize that they can change stuff right now. I remember writing down, probably another thing we can go into on another day, but really understanding what your ideal day is. Because as soon as you understand that, you understand what you have to do to get to that point.
Yes.
Whether it's working 8 hours a day doing something you're crucially happy about is a long-term thing. Yeah. But taking the dog out for a walk in the morning, making a smoothie, these things we can change right now, but we choose either to not do it or we haven't even thought about doing it yet. And I suppose just going into that with the imperative side of it, it would be good to
You're right. And I think quite often the emotion people associate with those things is guilt.
Right.
Because usually it's something which perhaps doesn't earn money, doesn't feel productive, and it feels like the to-do list of urgent and important things is much longer than this thing that actually gives us pleasure and energy.
Yeah.
I would argue the to-do list is utterly unimportant, generalizing wildly now, and the thing that you feel guilty about is absolutely critical to your experience of life in the long run. Because those are the things you'll look back on and say, I wish I'd done more of that. It's an old cliche, I know, but the cliches are true because they're true, right? It's an old cliche, but nobody at the end says, I wish I'd spent more time at the office.
Yeah.
At the end, you say, those moments on the beach, those were the moments, or those moments with the family, or whatever it might be. So that's what we mean by getting in touch with what's most important to you in life. And if it's something to do with your hobby, don't ignore that. Don't allow that to become second best to the thing that brings in the money. And ideally, find a way of merging the two. I mean, where we're ideally heading with this is if you can identify what you value most in life and what you enjoy most in life and get most energy from, go towards making a living doing that in as far as you can. And if you can't, do as much of it in your spare time as you can. Yeah. And really importantly, because here's the thriver mindset, bring who you're being when you're doing that into what you do at work. Be that person over here as well. Don't take the mask off.
Yeah.
Take the work mask off and be that engaged person. I mentioned in a blog recently the guy at the Isle of Wight ferry who waves the cars onto the ferry. So his job, this isn't maybe the most challenging and intellectual job in the world. His job is to point the direction the cars have to go to when they drive onto the car ferry. The guy is Billy Elliot in a ferry operator's uniform, and he's doing it in a very ballet fashion like this, and he's absolutely unbelievable, and everyone loves it. It's so entertaining to watch this guy doing it. And I always think of him as the epitome of the guy who knows who he really is, what he really loves in life, and has said to himself, well, maybe I'll just do it at work as well. Yeah. Who would have come up with the idea of merging ballet dancing and traffic direction? And nobody, I'm guessing the guy didn't go to the boss and said, I've had this idea, what do you think? Yeah. I'm guessing he just started doing it one day. He just said, there's no rule that says I can't be who I really am at work.
Yeah.
Right? We're waiting for permission from someone. Yeah. And the only person who needs to give us permission is ourselves. So give yourself permission to be who you really are. Bring it to work with you. Bring it to everything you do. Become that person. And you start to feel happy. You start to feel fulfilled in whatever you're doing,
Yeah, no,
and to go to your question, what is a value? What does that really mean? You gave some examples. I would say very simply, the question for people to focus on is, what would life be like if you were absolutely free to choose? So forget all the assumptions, forget all the rules and constraints and restrictions and the cultural barriers that you live in. Forget everything that everybody's told you about who you should be, and focus on the question, what would my life be like if I could have it any way I wanted? Mm-hmm. Not talking about being a millionaire. That might be the answer, but it's not at that level. It's who would I be? How would I be?
Yeah.
Would I be more humorous? Would I be more outspoken? Would I not let people push me around? What kind of person would I be if I was free to choose it?
Yeah.
And then just be that, because that's what's most important to you. Whatever answer you come up with is your value.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. It's such an important point, because I think, even giving ourselves permission to think in that way, what would I do if I had a clean canvas and someone said, here's the chronology of your day, exactly what would you do throughout it as soon as you wake up? Well, I'd wake up at 6:30 and I'd go to bed at 10:30 at night. Okay, you can do whatever you like in between those times. There's an old quote, someone, I can't remember who said it, that said, the person who's really living their life is the guy who wakes up at 6:30 in the morning, who goes to bed at 10:30 at night and does whatever he wants in between. That's the person who's really thriving. And once again, it's not saying that people can't thrive at where they're currently being, because someone might hate their job. They might really dislike what they're doing. But it's all about their perspective on what they are doing that creates the life that they live. Like you just said with the man with the ferry, he is choosing, no matter how mundane the job might sound, sitting waving flags all day, he's created something, and he has given himself permission to be a different person. He's still doing the same job.
Yes, exactly. He's still meeting his job description.
Exactly. And he's given himself permission to, I don't know, what is it? What's he given himself permission? He's done something different. We all know that, but he's given himself permission for something.
Yeah, he's given himself permission to be who he really is. And that, going back to Viktor Frankl, that really is the ultimate freedom when you think about it. When people talk about freedom, and I know a lot of people have looked at our blog on peace of mind, and it's really resonated with people.
Yeah.
Peace of mind. All it is giving ourselves permission to be who we really are, rather than pretending to be someone we're not. Or, and it's not usually as conscious as pretending to be someone. It's we adopt these personas, we adopt these masks that we believe people expect us to be at work. That's how I'm expected to be. That's how I should be. Yeah. So the guy we talked about at the ferry, he's nobody's expecting him to do that. It's not in the job description. Yeah. He's being who he really is in a unique implementation of his job description. Yeah. And this is an ability we all have at work. Your job description does not describe who you should be when you're doing that task. It doesn't tell you.
That's an important point.
Right? So the question is, how many different unique ways could someone meet the same job description? And the answer is an infinite number of ways, because that's how many different personalities there are.
Yeah.
So just work out who you are and be more of it. You know, for some people it's humor. Some people are very funny. They can make people smile and laugh. You, I'm sure, like I have heard train announcers who do it in a humorous way and have people in hysterics and brighten their day on a crowded train platform. It's not in the job description. Nobody's forcing them to do that. They could meet the job description in a miserable voice.
Yeah.
But when people do that, people respond to it and it brightens their day up. And why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
And I think there's something else in there as well, Ollie, which is thinking about more than just ourselves is really important. A big part of this, I think, is viewing this as how can I inspire other people to thrive? Yeah. Because when you're doing that, you're thriving. You cannot do that and not thrive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's always an element of service. There's always an element of contribution. There's always an element of what am I doing to help my fellow man and woman in some way or another?
Yeah.
And those two examples we just used absolutely demonstrate that, don't they?
Yeah.
In doing that, I'm feeling really fulfilled and happy.
Yeah.
And my job has meaning.
Yeah.
And we've all experienced, I think, those two extremes of customer service as consumers.
Yeah.
One where you get a really bad experience where this person clearly doesn't give a fig about me. And I cleaned that up. And this one where that person, you know, is, wow, that person really cares about me.
Yeah.
And both are meeting the same job description and earning the same money. One feels happier than the other. Why choose to be the miserable one? You know, that's a mindset thing.
Yeah.
Can I just briefly cover the other 3 steps? Because I promised to go steps. So the first 3 were awareness, empowerment, and imperative, making it imperative that we change. Just quickly, the last 3, excuse me, are commitment. So committing to do something about it. And we all need inspiration and help to stay committed. That's what Thrive Tribe is all about. We're going to help you be committed. Yeah. Enablement. So that's what do you need to enable you to do these things? And it might be, well, I need help discovering what my values are, for example. Yeah. What tools can I use, Paul? How can I go about that? So that's how we enable people. We find some tools, some techniques, some coaching, some mentoring, whatever it takes. And finally, activation is step 6, which is, so what are you going to do with this? You know, how are you going to put it into practice? The guy at the ferry terminal activates by going to work every morning, thinking Thrive mindset and doing his thing.
Yeah.
He puts it into practice. And it's so important. I just want to emphasize this. We probably should finish shortly, Ollie. I just want to emphasize it's so important to put this into practice and not to get stuck in that paralysis we talked about where there are infinite possibilities. So until I've decided and evaluated absolutely the right one, I won't begin.
Yeah.
Because this process is iterative. You have to begin. Decide what you think it is, start doing it, and then ask, how does it feel?
Yeah.
Am I going in the right direction? Or do I need to pause and reevaluate and maybe go this way a bit more?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we've got to begin. And there's a lovely quote, I wish I could remember who it was by, that says, just begin, because beginning has, you know, taking action has power in it. And it's magical. Things start to happen when you begin.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely true. That's been my experience, Ollie. When you start to get clearer about who you really are, and you start to be that person and make that the most important thing in your life rather than earning a living.
Yeah.
I know that's easy to say. It's easier to say than it is to do. But when you start to do that, people find that bits fall into place.
Yeah.
And people just appear out of nowhere and say, I see who you are. Would you mind coming and being that over here for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really magical the way it happens. There's a kind of synchronicity to it, which is wonderful. And but so begin, please, everyone. Just start. You know, commit to doing it. Begin, and you'll find things fall into place.
And it's weird how when you put something out there, I mean, even with the Thrive Tribe idea, you know, it started with 5 members on its first day, and within 4 or 5 months, people are attracted to the message. And it's not that you've got anything special that anybody else hasn't got. You've just got the message that you want to share. And it's like the guy at the ferry terminal. Because he's sharing his message, people will share it as well. You know, you just spoke to us about the guy at the ferry terminal. He's now famous.
Yeah.
So it's
we should interview him, shouldn't we? We should get
on YouTube. But it's such an important point, is that you attract exactly who you want to attract.
Yeah.
People are attracted to energy. mainly positive. People will usually speak about positive experiences to other people.
Yeah.
But it's what you see is what you get. And I think that's a really kind of good point to end on. And it'd be good to, kind of get a closing statement on what you feel people can do right now, today, in the moment, wherever they are in the world, to start attracting some more of that positive energy. How can they get people, or how can they get themselves on that wavelength of, right, I'm actually going to make a change today. I'm going to start attracting more positive energy into my life.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity of summarising it. I mean, it's you're right. There's no breakthrough piece of research here that I can wave and say I found the golden answer to life or any of that. It's a lot of this is my experience and fascination with people and psychology and the way it works and the way it's worked on me. So a lot of this is me reflecting back to people, my own journey and experience. Having reached the old age of 56, I spent a few years thinking about this stuff and trying to distill it into what are the key things that have made a difference for me. And I hope sharing that with people will help them. And so I think all I'm trying to do actually with the Thrive Tribe, when it comes right down to it, Ollie, is I'm trying to give permission to Thrive Tribe members to give themselves permission to thrive. I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Please, everyone, you have my permission to thrive. Please give yourself permission to thrive. Don't hold yourself back. Don't think that anything's beyond you or you're not worthy or deserving of success and happiness, because my personal belief is we all are. And the journey is just discovering how far we can take it. My own journey has been that I have been astounded several times in my life at how far you can take it. Every time I think I've plateaued and got to a point where I think, wow, I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah.
It fairly soon afterwards I think, okay, but let's go for the next thing now.
Yeah.
And every once in a while I get a little insight in my more lucid moments into, wow, so much more is possible. Yeah. And if everyone thinks that way, that there's a world of possibility, but we have to act and adopt a mindset to make it happen, then I hope people adopt a Thrive mindset. And I hope everybody listening to the video and everybody in the Thrive Tribe will share this with enough friends who will share it with enough friends that eventually the world will be full of people thriving rather than the people we see on TV every day. I'm thinking about
be conscious of the idea, because even just us waking people up to it, it gives them an element of, yes, I want to share this, because I don't want my family and friends to not hear about thriving. I want them to be more conscious and aware that they're not doing it.
And the world really needs this. When I switch on the news and watch the latest news stories, I see a succession of people who clearly, in my mind, are not thrivers in any sense, running the world. And the world needs more of us people. Not suggesting to run the world necessarily, although it's a possibility. But I do think the more we spread this thinking, the more the consciousness of humans changes. Sorry, that's not to sound really lofty, but I believe it. I believe that we infect other people with our enthusiasm. And I point to the guy at the ferry terminal who did that for me. Just through the way he was being. So be that way. And that's a good way to close.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing all the things that are coming up, and looking forward to the rest of the content as we kind of close out this year. But I hope everyone's taken a lot of value out of this. I appreciate your time, Paul. It's very inspiring to hear from you. And have a great rest of your week. It's only Wednesday, so you've got another few days to go. Make it the best.
Okay. Bye for now, everyone. Thanks, Ollie.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.